It's the most important day in the gardening calendar, a day when stunning gardens and spectacular flowers are unveiled at the most prestigious horticultural event of the year. Now, the gates are open, so come with me as we find you the best inspiration from the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2019. Welcome to the first day of Chelsea. Now, I've been coming here for years, but now I get to be here all week and I couldn't be more excited. Now, I'm going to be bringing you the very best plants, designs, inspiration and advice from the most prestigious flower show in the world. But it's a big show and a big job, and I'm going to need some help, and you two look perfect.
Oh,
yay!
hello.
Harry and David, also known as the Rich Brothers. I'm looking forward to working with you this week.
Oh, likewise. Same.
Now, a little birdie's told me that you two are celebrities in these parts because you hold the record for the youngest ever designers to win a gold medal here on Main Avenue. That must have been amazing.
Oh, it really was. I actually own that crown.
Well,
you
your brothers,
around,
your brothers,
yeah.
share the glory. What was it like?
That was amazing. So it was like 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago, but now we're here. It's just the buzz, and it's a fantastic show to be, and I don't know, we're really looking forward to seeing everything.
And now you're on the other side of the...
Now we're on the other side of the fence.
So, I'm guessing you've had a look around on the first day. Are there any gardens that have stood out for you already?
Well, they're all beautiful. We had a little wander round, but it's just so nice to see so many gardens inspired by different places in the world. So we've got Latin America, we've got Dubai, one inspired by an Australian beach. Oh,
lovely. But right now we're standing in the Resilience Garden. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, Sarah Everly has created a gorgeous garden,
Yes,
and it's because of the diverse range of plants she's got. She's created 3 different habitats. You've got arid, you've got woodland, you've got a damp, waterlogged area, and I think that's a fantastic thing to have in a garden.
Now, one plant that's taken my eye is this beautiful thing here. Tell us about this one as well.
good choice. What do you think it might be?
Maybe a foxglove?
Yeah, it's pretty close. You're half right. It's a digit plexus.
Right.
That's a complex one to choose first off.
But easy to maintain?
Yeah, I mean, they're great, and they like a kind of more of a drought-tolerant garden, but they're bomb-proof and a great plant to have in the garden.
Fantastic. Told you we'd have lots of advice, but would you like some more? Well, we've got a family of experts all over the showground. So here's what's coming up today from RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by M&G Investments. We'll be hearing from Francis, who is surrounded by the most gorgeous plants in the Great Pavilion.
Yes, I am, Angelica. Just look at the colour of this peony. I'm hunting out the best examples of British gardening classics, the flowers we all love to grow, and I'll have plenty more to wow you with later.
Thank you, Francis. Looking forward to that. We've also got Arit walking us through some of Chelsea's smaller spaces.
I think you'll like this one, Angelica. If you're looking for inspiration for a relaxing garden that needs very little watering, I might have the design for you.
Love it already, and James Wong is bringing the garden indoors.
Tired of all the same old houseplants? I'm going to look at some unexpected options that you might not have thought about.
It really is a packed show, and now for the first time ever, I've got access all areas, so I've decided to have a look around to see what the buzz is all about. Found the 20-kilogram beetroot. This is for you, for all your hard work.
Thank you, I need this.
Yeah. Can't get better than Richard E. The A-listers are having a great time, but do you know who's having more fun? The children who've been playing on the RHS feature garden alongside its co-designer, the Duchess of Cambridge. They've been road testing the garden. Well, that was a lot of fun. But now let's head over to the artisan area, which are a group of smaller plots that use lots of traditional materials. And because of their size, they're a great place to pick up some ideas for normal-sized gardens. It's also where Harry and David won their first Chelsea Gold. So they really know the challenges of designing for these plots.
I'm here on the Donkey's Matter garden, and it's a really beautiful space. Feels very calm. And the sound of water as well is a gorgeous element. Now, this garden feels like it's been here for a long, long time, and that's what's so nice about artisan gardens is there's so much detail that you can't quite believe it's been done in such a short time. Now, there's a lovely rhythm of purples and blues that run through the path. It really does catch your eye. But actually, what I love is the things that are a little bit harder to notice, and actually that's the pathways. Very subtle, very refined, but definitely very romantic. So it's just stones set amongst gravel. It's really simple to replicate, but it does add such a lovely, wandering, rustic journey through the space. And that's really depicting the arid landscapes in which the donkeys would live their day-to-day lives. And that stone runs up into the terracing as well. Now, when you think of terracing, sometimes you think of things that are quite clinical, they're quite difficult to replicate, whether it's concrete walls, whether it's brick and render, or block and render. But actually, by using stone like this, it creates such a romantic way, and it's really achievable. You can build it up stone by stone, you can take your time, and it's so nice because it lets plants filter through. It allows them to grow in some spots, and I think that's what really softens and gives those walls age. And what's so nice in this middle terrace here is they've really taken advantage of space. They've basically planted a field of lavender. Now, it looks gorgeous en masse, and that's a lovely technique, is if you love a plant, if you want to create that impact, plant more than one. And that's wonderful here because it gives a lovely scent to the garden as well. Now, this terracing gives a nice bit of height, but as your eye wanders back into the garden and you see the pencil cypress there, that again draws your eye up even further. And that's a lovely technique for a small space, so really think about the vertical. And then over in the front of the garden there, we have a beautiful pine tree that adds a gorgeous bit of sculpture and really fills out a corner in the garden. Now, we'll be looking around lots of gardens throughout the week, and later in the show, we're heading to one inspired by the deserts of Dubai. But first, we're staying a bit closer to home. Francis Tophill is hunting out those garden classics that we know and love.
Here in the Great Pavilion, you're never short of some classic garden flowers. When it comes to garden classics, nothing is more classic than the rose. Whole gardens have been built around them, and I think no garden is complete without one. And here on the Peterbilt stand, the scent is absolutely incredible. And one of their best-selling roses is called Comte de Chambord. It's a Portland rose from 1860, so it's a really old variety, and it has an incredible damask scent, lovely pink flowers, and it's a really compact form, so perfect if you have a smaller garden. Chelsea is always a showcase for some amazing spring flowers, but for me, a quintessentially classic spring flower has to be irises. They're so varied, but here at Todd's Botanics, you can see the flag irises at their best, from the lovely deep purple of the sable through to the palest yellow of Benton's primrose and everything in between. It really is a varied flower. But remember, if you want the best flowers from it, make sure you plant it in a sunny spot. If you're looking for a real showstopper of a classic plant, then it has to be a lupin. With these huge, incredible spikes of flowers, they really make such a statement. And the nice thing about them is you don't actually have to stake them at all. They're quite robust plants, so they hold up their flower spike. When you get close up to them, You can see these individually are pea flowers. It's a member of the pea family, so it's really good for bringing in pollinators. You can see that they can see those colours from miles around, and there's a huge array of colours to choose from. But if you really want something classic, then stick to the pinks and the purples, and you can't go wrong. A perennial favourite of mine, and looking its best in spring, and therefore here at the Chelsea Flower Show, is the peony. The Binny plant stand is absolutely brimming with incredible specimens. Red Charm is a classic. It shows all the classic signs and things that we love in a peony, from the big, lovely round red buds to the beautiful open flowers. People often worry that peonies can be a bit challenging, but there are 3 golden rules to having lovely big flowers. Firstly, keep them well watered between April and September. Even when they finish flowering, they're forming next year's buds, so that's really important. The second rule is never plant them too deeply. They like a little bit of sun to bake them so that they'll flower well. And thirdly, never plant them in the shade. If you stick to those 3 things, I think you can agree that they're worth the extra bit of work, and you'll have big, happy, healthy peonies.
Don't you just want every single one of those flowers? Weren't they all just beautiful? Now, every day this week, Harry and David are going to take a closer look at some of the gardens which initially may not appear relatable to most of us, but given close an inspection are packed with take-home ideas. In today's How Can You Get the Look, it's a garden inspired by Dubai.
Where else in the world would you get a slice of Dubai in the middle of a city, but at the Chelsea Flower Show?
Yeah, and I doubt any of our gardens look like this at home, but it's packed with great ideas.
I think my first great idea is this beautiful seating space. And this garden has plenty of seating, but for me, this is just beautiful because it's so simple. It's got a lovely continuous curve that creates a lovely intimate space. But you can create this very easily. I mean, you won't have that beautiful curve, but you can create a lovely canopy above you if it's a pergola, or maybe have some climbers that help to create that roof. But another tip is to have a lovely shrub or a tree on the outside of that seating area. Now this arbutus is doing a great job in almost cradling the space. It diffuses the views into the garden, but it brings the garden and the plants into the seating area, making a really cosy space. And then as you walk up the garden, you have these beautiful layers, really helping to create a lot of interest. But for me, at the top of this garden, I can really see how the curves accentuate and allow your eye to drift through the garden. Now, it's always great when you can put a bold feature in. Now, this clay rendered wall is beautiful because of its shape, and it's got a lovely camber to it, and it adds a lovely depth into the garden. So you can add dye to it to change the colour, or you can even paint it. It's all about not being afraid of going bold.
And also, a lovely element to the garden is this path here. Now, all they've done is actually start to space out the limestone slab. So not only are you getting a longer path for your money, but actually it helps to make it a bit more informal. So actually thinking about buying a longer, more linear slab, spacing it out, creating a bit more of an arc, helps to create an informal wandering journey. And not only are you going to have some lovely gaps in between the slabs, and you can start to fill in with plants. We've got a beautiful stipper grass here, which I feel really replicates the movement and the natural surroundings within the garden. And that's a lovely way to create a journey through your garden, but also a great way to make it feel a lot more natural, softer, more sympathetic, is simply by using gravel like this. And actually, the lovely bit about this path is that there's different grades of gravel. And that's a gorgeous tip for making a path feel a lot more natural. So we've got the finer gravel in the middle that you'll walk on, and then the larger gravel then on the outsides helps to create that little bit of a border effect. And obviously this area is defined by the water feature. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. If you think of water features, you don't necessarily think of one in a teardrop shape like this, but that's what makes it so unique, and that's what makes it so eye-catching. So if you're going to have a water feature, think about the shape that you can have. The world is your oyster, in a way. And then this area then is defined by the plants as well. A lot lower growing, sedums, alpines around here. That really depicts quite an incredible character. Feels very different to the soft swathes of grasses throughout. But altogether, it's a lovely way of breaking up a garden, softening the hard landscaping with the planting, and that helps to create a very natural and sympathetic space.
Thanks, boys. Still to come. Ahead of Her Majesty the Queen's visit, we'll find out why royal gardeners come to Chelsea Flower Show with a very different eye to most of us. And we'll also be opening up the Chelsea Clinic, where our experts will be answering some of your horticultural queries. But first, after seeing so many beautiful plants here, I think I'll be spending a small fortune by the end of the week. Thank goodness for Chris Bavin, who has headed to the Great Pavilion to find the plants which will help you fill your borders without breaking the bank.
You want to fill your garden with plants, but you don't want to spend a fortune. How do you do it? Well, I'm going to ask the people that know best, the growers. Rosie, I'm looking for some advice. We want our garden to look like this. We want it to look lovely, but we're on a bit of a budget. We want to get value for money. What should we be doing?
You should be getting plants that get to being really big size, and then that means that once they've got to that full size, you can split them and divide them.
Perfect. OK, so have you got anything in mind?
So you've got the Astrantia here. Now, Astrantias are fantastic. They've got beautiful flowers, flower for a good length of time, make large clumps, and then when you finish flowering, you can lift them and divide them then. And you've got something like this, which is a hardy geranium. These are, again, something which spread. They make really decent-sized clumps. You'd get something this sort of size in about 2 to 3 years. Before that, you could split, lift it, divide it. And some of these you can take cuttings from as well.
So we've got the ability to either split them or take cuttings.
Yeah, absolutely.
To get more plants for nothing, effectively.
Yeah, this is the great thing about them. So it's really good value for money.
And can you give me some advice? I'm on a budget. I want my garden to look amazing. What plants should I be going for?
My all-time favourite, my desert island disc plant, is this little erigeron, an erigeron carvinscianus, Mexican fleabane. Little 9-centimetre pots, about this big, about £2 each. The joy of it is it will self-seed everywhere. It's the most delicate, generous plant in the garden. It will flower for 9-10 months of the year, frolicking away like this. It will self-seed in the smallest crack, so you get that lovely cottage garden look to any paving. Yeah, it's the best value plant in the world, I think.
Lily, you're known for creating such wonderful gardens, such as this. What plants would you recommend to give me the best value for money?
I would go for some Aquilegia because they've got exquisite flowers and foliage as well, which is brilliant in the springtime when all your bulbs are emerging and they give a nice green base. But nice and cheap, and they come back every year.
OK, so cheap. I mean, what would we be looking at in terms of cost to buy a plant?
Well, you can just buy a packet of seeds, and so it's as good as that. You don't need to buy full plants. It's direct sow, and you're on your way.
And I can testify to the fact that they spread.
They do spread.
Because they do so in my garden, which is amazing. Yeah. So you get really good value for money.
And you can pick and choose where they go. So if you're not happy with that position, pull it out. It will self-seed everywhere.
Well, there you have it. If you want beautiful borders, but you don't want to break the bank, there's something here for everyone.
And Chris will be back with us tomorrow. Now, Floristry is at the heart of Chelsea, and there are some utterly stunning displays in the Great Pavilion, in fact, throughout the whole show. Sadly, though, not all of us are as skilled or talented as those designers, but luckily, we've got florist to the stars and royalty, Simon Lycett, to give us some help. Hello, Simon.
Hello.
I've been looking forward to seeing you because I'm going to put it out there. I am rubbish at flower arranging, and I'm hoping you can change that.
We will.
We will. First things first. What's the key to good flower arranging?
I think the importance is your plant material, what lovely flowers. People underestimate how much to use, lovely foliage, and then the way you make it, your mechanics.
So getting the flowers and the whole thing right in the start is the best thing.
Yes.
But what do people get wrong most of the time?
I think they forget just how much they need. You look at your vase and you go and you're buying your flowers from your flower shop or you're picking from the garden and you never quite get enough.
Yeah, totally. And also having the right vase for how the flowers are, if they're smaller, or if they're bigger, you know, it has to be the right vessel.
It needs to be the correct vessel, and then you need to know what's the secret to holding those flowers in that vessel to sustain themselves for the time they're going to look gorgeous.
Well, let's talk about trends, because things have moved along, and I haven't seen an oasis in sight here.
Well, We're trying, Oasis is something that's not so popular these days, so we're trying to look at more green techniques for flower arranging, and they're the old ones that we used to use. So things like a pin holder, which is in there, which is like a little tiny weeny carpet of nails, and that will, you can impale flowers on that. It's nice and weighty.
It is, yeah.
So, and then you would fill your vase with water and arrange into that. Or even just something as simple as a quick network of twigs pushed into a vase.
That's really clever.
And it sustains stems when you put water in. A trick that everybody loves is this one. So it's just a grid. Sellotape.
Keep them up.
Supports the stems. Or my favourite, 2-inch mesh of chicken wire, which works in any container.
Well, Simon is going to show us how to create a beautiful display of flowers. Let's see how he did it earlier.
This is my guide to creating a wonderfully informal contemporary style of flower arrangement. So the first thing is to start with our container, 2-inch mesh of chicken wire, which means I create a relaxed style of arrangement. And the second step is to create a gorgeous framework using a wonderful mixture of foliage. Easily grown alchemillas, perfect as a starting point for my arrangement. Having added in our foliage, we now start and add in some of the floral foliage. Gorgeous soft amis, like cow parsley, but much easier to grow, and adds wonderful softness. The love child of foliage and flower. So my foliage frame is finished, and the last thing, the final step, is to add in some gorgeous pops of floral colour that just create a wonderfully soft, loose, organic style. And there we have it, a gorgeously soft, organic assortment of floral fabulousness.
And here is the finished bouquet. It's beautiful. It's really wild, isn't it?
Yes, it's gorgeous. All of these are seasonal and British, and that technique of using chicken wire, it means that you can create a loose, soft, gentle style of decoration that's very, very on trend at the moment.
Okay, so let's talk about diva flowers then.
Yes.
What do they do?
They add in a pop, they pimp your posy. So look at that amazing peony. I've got some gorgeous lupins here. So it's just a way of adding in a little kick of extra colour towards the end. You don't put them in earlier in your arrangement because you might tear and damage them, but just towards the end of your arranging, or a day or two later to give a step change, you just find a flower or two that just adds a little kick of colour and just upgrades it suddenly to a diva.
So basically, they sort of make it bigger, make it better, and make things pop.
They add some little kicks of colour. It was gorgeous before, but all of a sudden now, by adding these in, we're just suddenly transforming it into something that really is a showstopper.
Well, I really like this trend, just letting the flowers be organic and wild. It's really lovely. I've learnt something.
Good.
Thank you so much, Simon. Well, it's not just floristry that's getting a bit wild. Some of the designs are too. Arrett's looking for ideas in the space to grow gardens, and they're designed to give inspiration for compact, more urban spaces.
The environmental issues facing us today are more pressing than ever. And this garden by Lauralie de La Salle, the Garden of Harmonious Life, has been designed in response to this. But how has she tackled such a big issue in such a small space? The hidden harmony within this garden is the elements, and it's how Lauralie has used them as function within this space. So it may look like I'm having a nice swing, but actually this, coupled with the solar panel that's used above, is creating energy for the water feature. Using plants like bamboo and ivy is fantastic for a garden because it can really help to filter out pollution and particulates in the atmosphere. And using plants that are drought tolerant, things like Nacella tenuissima or things like Nepeta, they don't need any watering once they're established, and they're really good in your garden. Even the boundary takes into consideration the environment, because a hedge like this is fantastic for birds and small mammals to be able to shelter in, and when it's in flower, it means that even the pollinators can draw nectar from it. Wherever you are, using native hedging is so beneficial within your garden space. The clover meadow is an alternative to traditional lawn, and it's really good at fixing nitrogen into the soil, which means you do not have to have any fertiliser within this garden. It can just penetrate into the soil and feed all of the other plants, such as the salvia and the lavenders. This is bee heaven. It certainly feels and looks harmonious, and part of that is due to the palette of plants that she's chosen that have all come from the Mediterranean region. They all sit very well together. She's kept it very simple and just tones of purples and lilacs with yellows as accents. This garden is certainly full of harmony, and this oculum is a design feature, but for the designer it's a window. It's a representation of being able to take messages out to the wider world of all of her ecological principles.
Such a stunning garden. Thank you so much, Arit. Well, as you can see, I'm now joined by Dragon Den star and also keen gardener Deborah Medan. It's lovely to meet you.
It's so lovely to be here.
But I'm going to promise you I'm not going to pitch anything to you because I know you're in the middle.
That's rare.
I know you're in the middle of filming at the moment, aren't you?
We are actually, which is lovely because actually that's in a darkened den, and to be here in the sunlight is just lovely.
It's fantastic. Now, you are a regular to Chelsea. What do you love about it?
Well, I've been coming for about 10 years, and every year I see something new and inspirational. And my poor Phil, who looks after my gardens and my plants, he has to put up with me going back saying, I want to change this and I want to do that. So
every time you come, you are looking for inspiration, or you're just looking for new ideas to revamp your garden?
Well, inspiration, I mean, you know, my garden is, and it's not a massive garden, but it does have a form of its own. It kind of, every now and then it does its own thing, and every now and then I have to find inspiration to get it back into shape. So that's what we do here.
So do you have any gardening disasters? Because you do like gardening, don't you? You love it, genuinely get involved.
I do. Yes, I have a lot of gardening disasters because whatever the label on the plant says, I think, well, actually, I'll just try it there. And usually the label knows right, but every now and then I plant something and everybody says it'll never survive, and it does.
Well,
so
you said that weeds survive a lot in your garden to me, didn't you?
Oh, weeds do well. But lovely weeds. I mean, actually here, we've got the lovely cow parsley behind me. That's a weed, you know, but it looks beautiful. So I'm beginning to appreciate weeds a little more now.
Well, you did have an exciting moment just now because you saw your favourite plant ever. Tell us about it, and it's just behind us.
This tiny little plant here, and it's called an astrantia. I think it's an astrantia minor. There's a bigger one as well. What I love about it is people they just walk past it. But actually, if you look at the flower head, the detail and the beauty on that little flower head, you know. So, yes, I literally out of the corner of my eye, oh, there's my astrantia. I feel very at home. I love an astrantia.
Well, we chose this spot just for you.
Thank
now,
you.
we know you love flowers, but you also love vegetables because you grow your own. What do you grow?
Oh, it depends, to be honest. But we obviously the potatoes and lots of root vegetables, which are lovely, but we eat rather too many of those in the winter. But we will try everything. So we've got chilies and tomatoes and dill and fennel and yeah. So we give everything a go. Some of it works and some of it doesn't. That's the joy of gardening.
Well, exactly. Do you use it in your cooking as well?
Absolutely. Well, I don't cook. I have never cooked a meal in 28 years.
Oh, really?
No. My husband is a fantastic cook, however. And yes, and there is nothing like sitting down with a plate full of produce that you've grown yourself. You know, and it does taste different, but it's because you have produced it.
Yeah.
It's very, very rewarding.
Now, Deborah, you're here on official business because since 2013 you've been involved with Chelsea Garden Product of the Year. What exactly is it?
Well, we're looking for innovative new products that people can use within their gardening world, and that means whether it's a patio, whether it's a huge garden. And because actually, in the gardening world, there's a lot of innovation, and our lives are changing. We use our gardens differently, so to find something that can help us love and enjoy and work our gardens, that's why I love judging the product of the year.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for talking to us. And later, Deborah is going to show us some of the Chelsea Garden products of the year. So, thanks to social media and the increase in young people renting their homes, sales of houseplants are soaring. But if you're getting a bit bored of the same old spider and rubber plants, James Wong is hunting out some new ideas here at Chelsea to bring the outside in.
Size permitting, you can take pretty much any outdoor plant and bring it indoors. But one of the big challenges you'll face is humidity. So the average British living room, particularly in winter, is far too dry for this mossy, ferny, woodlandy look. But there are cheats. You can take ferns and mosses and put them in a terrarium or a bottle garden where the glass helps seal in the moisture, keeping that humidity really high. You can also put it in a water feature, and it doesn't have to be anywhere near this big. I have a tabletop fountain the size of a shoebox, and I've got lots of ferns in that. And if your ambitions are even bigger, there is one other solution you might want to tackle. And that's this, a living wall. Now, there are some years at Chelsea where it feels like almost every other main avenue garden has one, but you very rarely see them indoors, and they're super easy to do, as McBean's Orchids has shown. What's underneath here is just a wicking fabric, capillary matting with a simple irrigation system that runs along the top, keeping that matting wet, and the plants are just popped into that. But you can create a living wall really with almost no technology. All you need is a receptacle of water like a tank or a tray and the wick effect. So if you hang this fabric into it, the water will be drawn up by the wick effect to the height of about 30 centimeters, which means you can grow ferns like this maidenhair fern, the adiantum, which is normally really difficult indoors, super easily. One of the biggest challenges of taking outdoor plants indoors is light levels. Because while window glass might appear completely clear to our eyes, it can actually filter out up to 50% of light. But if you have grow lights, you can grow plants anywhere. But even if you don't have grow lights, you can grow something like these microgreens here. There's basil, there's some chives here, I can see even some radishes. If you want to grow some chilies, chilies are tropical plants, they make great house plants. And if you're worried that this is a little bit big for you, the size of a chili plant is entirely determined by its pot size. So the smaller the pot you put it in, the smaller the plant. The only other thing you need to know to replicate outdoor conditions in your indoor allotment is pollination. So outdoors, tomato plants have bees to do the work. Indoors, you can do that yourself just with a soft paintbrush. You take it and you just tickle the center of each flower. You might think of tomato plants as enormous, but this guy, patio plum, doesn't get much bigger than that. There's even one called microtom that doesn't get bigger than 8 centimeters high. So do not let not having a garden cramp your horticultural ambitions. If I can bring the outdoors in to my tiny one-bedroom urban flat, then anyone can.
A bit later today, the Queen and members of the royal family will be given a guided tour of the show, but they won't be alone, as gardeners from the royal palaces often visit on the hunt for inspiration. As a garden advisor to the royal palaces, Todd Longstaff Gowan knows all about what they'll be looking for. Hi Todd.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Nice, and you've got a lovely link with the royals, haven't you?
Yes, I'm the garden advisor of the royal palaces, which means that I have responsibilities for a clutch of palaces, mostly in Greater London, and with a view to presenting them for the public and making them as spectacular as possible.
I bet there's a lot of gardeners there.
We've got over 50-something gardeners. We have, I think, the highest standards in the country.
Of course, only the best. What kind of thing do the royal gardeners look for when they come to Chelsea?
I think our biggest interest here is plants. Yeah. I mean, first, it's a great place to come.
Yeah.
But secondly, it must be the plants, because we're working in historic estates, and whilst there's scope for new gardens, we're really trying to find the best possible plants for our gardens. Yeah. So I love the tent. The marquee is the best, as it were. And
I mean, the marquee's it's like a sweet shop, isn't it? There's so many plants in there.
It's extraordinary. So that's for us the greatest place to go.
Nice. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have now moved into Frogmore Cottage. I mean, what kind of thing will they be looking to do there in the gardens?
Well, we're hopeful that they'll be as eccentric as some of the former owners. There have been some rather eccentrics, like the Munchie and then one of Romanov Grand Duchess, and all of them made their mark. So one hopes that there'll be probably a very natural garden. I suppose with nippers, you'll probably want to have something quite
soft
robust.
Soft around the edges, isn't it?
Soft around the edges and robust, hard play. So, but there's lots of scope, there's lots of land. It's very nice and quiet, so I think that they'll find it an extraordinary place.
Nice. Well, I think that's what's so nice, is having, the gardens have been touched by many people. I think they evolve and they have that sense of history, but it's always lovely to have a new generation and to put their stamp on it. So.
It's fantastic, and that's what the palaces are all about. I mean, it's a living garden, living palace, so we welcome all the new layers that are added to the landscape every year.
Nice, lovely. Well, they've got a new boy now, so he'll be out kind of making havoc.
We
on
hope
the
so.
gardens.
We hope he becomes gardener too.
Yeah, dirty knees, dirty hands.
Oh, that's what we love.
Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Todd. Earlier, Angelica caught up with the Dragon's Den star Deborah Medan. She's been using all her expertise to judge this year's Chelsea Garden Product of the Year. Let's see how she got on.
Chelsea has a Garden Product of the Year competition where we look for something new, innovative, something that hopefully the general public will look at and think, yeah, that's brilliant, that'll make my gardening better. So I'm always looking for innovation, obviously, but also an emotional response and also a practical use for it. But I think layered on top of that, I'm very concerned about the environment. So this year I was very pleased to see a lot of environmental products. So what we've got here, it looks a bit like a humble seed tray, but actually what it is, it's completely environmentally friendly, completely compostable. This particular one's made from waste bamboo, bound together with a totally environmentally friendly resin. So I am going to pledge from this day forward to only use completely compostable seed trays. And it's been hard to find them. Here we go. This is just a very, very beautiful planter, but actually it is more than that. So this is all hand steam bent. There's an innovation in the way the wood is actually bent. They've actually found a new way of doing it, which means that they can really get these lovely big curves. There's a very clever little watering system in there. The judges absolutely loved it. So we have a really lovely, cool, very neat wood-fired pizza oven. Wood under here, pizza's up there. The judges loved the aged appearance of this, but what was really cool about it is it comes flat packed. You don't actually need a tool. Everything is actually pegged together. So you slot it together, you put these little pegs in. Even I, apparently, could assemble it. Really cool design. This is the winner of the Product of the Year at Chelsea, and we loved it because it's hot bin composting. That means it's faster composting. But it's a very compact unit, which means that it brings composting to everybody, whatever size of garden you have. You put your waste in here, and waste means everything. It's not just fruit and vegetables. Small bones can go in there. You put the lid down, it heats up, and then you open the front, and it produces the most gorgeous, rich compost. And at the very bottom, there's a tap, and you can draw out the really lovely liquid that you can feed to your plants and make your flowers just beautiful.
All week, we want to find out what makes some of our show garden designers tick. Today, Arit is quizzing Kate Gould.
Hello, Kate.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Finally made it onto your garden. Very excited. So, I'm going to get to know you a bit more.
Okay.
What is your earliest gardening memory?
Gardening with my mum. Absolutely. Once famously weeding an entire trough of all the plants out of it and leaving the weeds. I don't know how she kept her temper, but yeah.
Of all the gardens you designed at Chelsea, which one's your favourite?
Politically, I say this one, perhaps. We're in it. But I think as a collective team, our garden that we built in 2017, City Living, is something that sits in the hearts of the team.
If you wasn't a garden designer, what would you be?
An archaeologist.
Really?
I like history. I also like mud.
Describe in 3 words, only 3, what Chelsea means to you.
Fun.
Yeah.
Mad. And it's a bit of a holiday from the real world in a very strange way.
Which of your fellow designers do you admire the most and why?
Always like what Sarah Eberle does. I think that girl has, you know, a pair of balls.
She is a top designer. When you're not watching BBC coverage of Chelsea, obviously, what's your favourite TV show?
I'm not sure I want to admit this.
Oh, right.
I like a banal TV, something to switch off to, possibly the Kardashians.
You've outed yourself now. If you could get anyone to play you in a film, who would it be?
One of my eyes always looks a lot bigger than the other, so the guy from the Pink Panther, Herbert Lom, it's like sort of nervous twitch and grey hair.
So funny. least favourite job to do in the garden?
Mulching.
Oh, that was out quick.
Yeah. I don't even have to think about that one. I hate mulching.
Why did you become a garden designer?
I love gardening, I love mud, I love being creative. It's lovely. You plant something and you watch it come to life.
Yeah. Give us a favourite job you like doing in the garden.
Weeding. I like weeding. End of the day, glass of wine, and you can just weed, and it's lovely.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Let's go and enjoy Chelsea.
Oh, thank you, Arit. Now, every day this week, we're going to be opening up our Chelsea clinic, which is a chance basically for you at home to ask our experts any gardening question you like. And today, we're starting with you. You're going to be in the hot seat.
Oh.
Let's get going. OK, Val from Taunton has a sickly plum tree. It blossomed really early this year in the beginning of March, and now after some cold spells, the leaf buds have dried up. She says she thinks it's a goner. Any advice?
Ooh. Well, at least she enjoyed that blossom. I think, first of all, that was great. But possibly a fungal disease called blossom wilt. It could be that, and that's where perhaps the leaf or the flower actually dries up in spring, which is a good way of kind of seeing that. But often happens to plums or cherries. But if there's new shoots appearing in the summer, then just cut off the dead stuff above it,
right?
And then it should be fine.
So there is hope.
Sounds
there
like
is
it.
hope for you, Val. Your tree might be saved.
Maybe she'll see another blossom.
OK, perfect. Celebrity question for you. OK, no pressure. It's from Richard E. Grant. Let's hear what he wants to know.
Can anybody please tell me how you cure box blight and the box caterpillars that have decimated the box population of Britain?
Box blight.
Yeah.
So there's some beautiful, box all around our country is getting, destroyed by this. But box caterpillar, perhaps using biological control might kill the caterpillar. But box blight, on the other hand, is just such a brute, and it's going to be very hard to tackle that. So I would think probably use another species. Perhaps yew is a great alternative. Otherwise, something like beech or hornbeam would be another great plant to use. So. Unfortunately.
Well, thank you for that advice.
Sad news.
Hopefully that helped Richard. OK, what about one from Chris? He says, I have bamboo coming in from a neighbouring garden.
Oh.
How do I eradicate it in my garden?
Well, there's a couple of options, I suppose. So first option, you might as well pop around to your neighbour, see if they actually want to keep the bamboo, because it's a pest in his garden. It might also be a pest in theirs as well. So there's a chance you could both dig it out together. If that's not the case, you can make a trench on your side of your boundary, put in some slabs or some membrane. That'll prevent the roots from growing into your garden.
Brilliant. Thank you for getting in contact, Chris. Our Chelsea clinic is open all week, so get your horticultural queries to us on either the Gardeners World Facebook page or using the hashtag BBC Chelsea on Twitter.
That's all from us today. We'll be with you at the same time tomorrow, and it's Medals Day.
Oh, exciting. And Monty joins Joe over on BBC Two at 8 p.m. for their first analysis of the designs. Carol Klein's hunting out some new floral discoveries, and Rachel de Tame will be showing you how to get the wild planting look that's big at Chelsea this year.
And Sophie and Joe are back tonight. It's 7:30 on BBC One with a look at all the stunning show gardens. They've got an exclusive interview with Monty and the Duchess of Cambridge, and we also hear for the first time what her children think of the garden. So shall we come back tomorrow?
Definitely.
Yes.
We'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye.
welcome to the opening day of the most prestigious flower show in the world, where designers create trends and there's inspiration for every gardener.
The long, cold winter is a distant memory. It's the end of May, which means the summer is upon us. So it's time for the RHS Chelsea Flower Show 2019.
Everything looks polished, shiny, perfect, and not just the gardens, because a host of famous faces and the royal family are out in force to bask in the joy that is Chelsea.
Coming up from the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by M&G Investments. Mary Berry is finding out what it takes to provide beautiful flowers to A-list clients.
Carol Klein reveals the most stunning plants she just can't get out of her head.
And an exclusive interview with the Duchess of Cambridge, who's helped design the most talked about garden here.
In fact, Prince William, Kate and their 3 children were all here yesterday afternoon enjoying the garden. And we'll be hearing what their children made of it all.
This is Main Avenue, where the most influential,
the most impressive,
the most beautiful gardens are waiting to be viewed by more than 100,000 people.
And tonight we're going to give you a whistle-stop tour of them all.
So sit back and be inspired as we guide you through this year's show gardens.
First up is designer Kate Gould with the Green Fingers Charity Garden.
Any Chelsea garden's an emotion. And everything that you put into it, especially when you've got a sponsor like this, any kind of sponsor with a strong charitable meaning sits heavily on your shoulders.
Next is the M&G garden, designed by 7-time Chelsea Gold medal winner Andy Sturgeon.
And what this garden means to me really is it sort of sums up the journey that I've been on in the past year. It started off when I saw rock formation on a beach in Australia, but I've introduced lots of other experiences from my life into it, and that's why it's a woodland garden, because woodland gardens mean a lot to me. It reminds me of my childhood.
Over the hedge is Andrew Duff's garden for Savills and David Harbour. Andrew, are you pleased with the result?
Yeah, I was really pleased. I think it looks incredible, don't you think?
It looks fantastic. The sculpture is beautiful, and there's also a ripple in the water. Caught me by surprise. I thought you had a big fish in there.
Well, we were a bit concerned that the still water would just be too still for the garden, so we thought we'd add a little bit of fun to it, which is important.
From Main Avenue, you look down and you see the reflection of the sculpture in the water, which is stunning.
Yeah. Well, the story is to imagine sort of walking through a woodland and you come across a clearing, and the light is different. There might be a bit of mist rising, and that's really what the sculpture is about. But that's a tall order to create at Chelsea.
This is your first time at Chelsea, isn't it? Even though you've taught a lot of students who have been at Chelsea, this is your first time. How's that been?
It's been incredible, but to be honest, we've had the most amazing team. It really isn't about me at all, really. We wanted to create a garden that was a little bit different, perhaps coming back to what a real garden is about. So it's not full of clever gimmicks or anything like that. It's just well proportioned. I'd like to think a good use of plants. But above all, we just wanted to create a tranquil and calm space.
Well, you've certainly done that. Yeah. And what is it about Chelsea that is important to you as a designer?
I think Chelsea's right up there, isn't it? It's the pinnacle of our career and an opportunity to showcase your work. So it's a really special place to be. I feel pretty humbled to be here, to be honest.
Well, congratulations, we've gone. Enjoy the week.
Thank you. I'll try.
Chelsea's opening day is always the hottest ticket in town, and today is no different. We caught up with a host of famous faces to find out what they think of this year's event.
I've got to come clean. This is the first time I've ever been. And I slightly feel as if I'm in a bit of a dream.
The people that know what they're doing want to be here, and the people that don't know what they're doing, like me, want to come and see it.
What I love about this is it just reminds us about staying outside and the beauty of some of the simple things.
It's a bit hickledy-pickledy. There's a bit of a sense of kind of adventure.
So if you see a tulip, it's the very best of its kind. If you see a begonia, you've never seen such a beautiful begonia in your life.
A couple of years ago, I had a great conversation with someone about nettles for about 40 minutes. It was fascinating. I think, where else could I have done that?
What a gig. What a gig. When that call came through, did you think, this is the one I've been waiting for?
You can take little bits away. It's like fashion. You can just take little bits away and whatever suits you and whatever suits your lifestyle.
Some people forget that garden designers are true artists.
Oh, there are wonderful gardens. You bump into friends, it's great.
So I'm doing a lot of people watching today. It's extraordinary and beautiful. Loving it.
While the A-listers are mingling around the gardens, the plants in the Great Pavilion are the real stars. Here's Carol with some of her favourites this year.
When you walk in here for the first time, it can be quite overwhelming, but the more you look round, the more you find yourself just gravitating towards certain stands, like this one, Cabot Garden Plants. This stand is packed with treasures. You hardly know where to start, but there's one in particular that's really taken my eye. It's the Lusianskia ovata. It's a little alpine from South Africa, and everything about it is exquisite. It has this neat, compact form. It's got these glorious, pure white flowers, and on the reverse, they're crimson. It's such a pretty little thing. I've fallen in love with this garden. It's the perennial lifeline garden. It's got motifs which are repeated all the way around the planting. One of the plants that gives the whole stand cohesion is this lovely rose. It's Rosa glauca. It's a species rose and it has these pale, soft grey leaves, complemented by single pink flowers. But it's planted in amongst perennials, and that's a wonderful thing to do because in actual fact in nature, perennials and roses grow together beautifully. So here we've got the Cirsium rivulari atropurpureum. It's a mouthful, but basically it's a deep purple thistle. And there are opium poppies in exactly the same sort of wine colour. A gorgeous perennial called Lysimachia atropurpureum. Again, the same colour but in a quite different form. And it really perfectly blends with everything else here to make this a garden that makes you feel totally tranquil, peaceful, and as though you could sit here all day. Everything about this lovely woodland glade that Jacques Amand have created is just perfection. But these lilies in particular caught my eye. This one's called Lilium martigan Orange Marmalade. Perfect name for it. And I think what I love about it so much is the way the flowers are individually very dainty and the petals are recurved. All martigan lilies are elegant, but I think these have a particular sort of fairy-like quality. And I could find myself coming back to look at them over and over again.
It's not just floral exhibitors in the pavilion, there are also some beautiful garden displays, including this one from Birmingham City Council. They're working again with Floella Benjamin, who is here this year. Green, it's very much the colour and the theme.
Very much so, because this garden, Floella's Future, is showing you how we can explore, educate, question, celebrate the environment, and all the things that we need to be thinking about with climate change, because climate change is like a global emergency. We've got to do something, and to see how we can make a difference, change the world through our everyday behaviour.
So you've chosen to illustrate that with this huge face. Those are all representing single-use straws,
yeah,
for example.
because, you know, we use over 36 billion plastic straws every year. So the idea is to say you don't have to use plastic straws. There are other materials. Use biodegradable plastic, because we've actually sleepwalked into this disaster we find ourselves. So now we've got to change all that, and change by using plastic that is actually going to be kind of can compost, you know.
So show us some of the other ways you've tried to illustrate that. I mean, you've got this greenhouse here, which is made of reused plastic bottles.
Because I think, you know, as I say, we've got to invent our way out of this climate change disaster, because our children are crying out for help, because the ocean over there, you see the fish and the turtles full of plastic. Plastic is going into the fish, then it's going through the food chain, and soon we'll be full of plastic. So we've got to do something.
You mentioned children, and there's one lovely detail in here, which is you. There's a figure of you years ago. I mean, you are now 70 this year. There's a little figure of you in your 20s doing play school, which I used to watch.
Well, and it's funny coming to Chelsea. I've been coming to Chelsea for many years, and now I'm a vice president of the RHS. Who would have thought? It's just showing the childhood when you actually grow up with nature, because my mother loved nature. And as I said, this is for children. I've dedicated this garden for children. And at the bottom here, you'll see pictures what the children, 6- and 7-year-olds, have drawn to show what they're feeling, the disaster that we're causing. They're saying, help us. The fish is saying, help us. Children are saying, help us. We're going to invent our way out of climate change.
Floella, it's lovely to see you here again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, it's time now that I found Joe to carry on our tour of the big show gardens. But the next one isn't on Main Avenue. It's over there.
For the first time, a large show garden is in the Great Pavilion. It's designed by Tom Dixon, who you might know for his cutting-edge lamps and furniture, and he's now turned his hand to designing the IKEA garden.
It's been a huge learning experience, many more rules than I thought would exist, but it's only given me the energy to do another one next year.
Back onto Main Avenue with Resilience by Sarah Eberly, the most successful designer at Chelsea so far.
The garden this year, it's about the threat of pests and diseases and climate change on our native forests, woodland, gardens and landscapes. Hopefully it'll inspire people to make a difference.
Winner of last year's Best Show Garden, Chelsea giant Chris Beardshaw returns with the Morgan Stanley Garden.
What we wanted to do is to execute it being very resource conscious. So is it possible to produce a sustainable garden where we're not compromising beauty and we're maximising the aesthetic experience of the garden?
And over the hedge is Chelsea veteran and winner of last year's People's Choice, Mark Gregory, with Welcome to Yorkshire.
This year my garden's really celebrating the industrial heritage of West Yorkshire. Really what I've tried to do is show how nature has reclaimed what was pretty industrial, scarred landscape, and now it's beautiful.
And look who I've just bumped into, John Bishop. Is this your first time at Chelsea?
It is, John. It is. Yeah. I've never been before, because I've always thought gardening was for, old people. But now I realise, having been here, that it's for the cool young people like myself. Yes. And you.
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean? We're making it trendy
I'm glad you brought me in there. Yeah. And then what are your first impressions then?
You know what? It's actually, well, for the start, the size of it, the scale of it's bigger than I thought. Yeah. And then, obviously, these installations are so much more dramatic when you see them face up. But I tell you the big thing is, because I'm not a massive gardener, is the fact that there's so much going on that's accessible. I thought I was going to come in and there'd be loads of horticulturists talking in Latin terms. And
we do a bit of that sometimes.
A little bit of that, but obviously when they've seen me approaching, they've dropped it and they've gone, yeah, red flower, blue flower. But it's nice. It's got a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So you're just enjoying the day out. Are you looking for anything in particular for your garden at all? What are you into?
Well, the problem that I've done is I've brought my wife. So whilst we're talking, she's probably spending. I'll probably go home and find that we've got, those big dragon things that are made out of driftwood. They're like 40 foot high.
Yeah, you'll have 10 of them.
I'll have 10 of them? I thought they'd look lovely.
So what's your garden like? Because you're into your sculptures, aren't you?
Yeah, we've got a few sculptures in the garden. We've got, because my brother's are a metal artist, so we've got some wrought iron sculptures in the garden, and then we've got a few other little things that we've having to pick up along the way. Because I think a garden, if you've got the size, and we're lucky enough to have a big garden, it's nice to meander through it and find something you weren't expecting.
Yeah, the sense of discovery.
Yeah,
you could be a garden designer, and that's the basis of all these gardens down here.
It's easy, isn't it? I mean, you could come here next year and there will be me with a sense of discovery hiding behind.
So what would your dream garden be? Would it be form or would it be inform? There's a lot of woodland gardens here this year.
I like woodland gardens, and I love wildflower meadows. I love that. So that's something that if you can try and create something that attracts, the bees and attracts the wildlife, that's the kind of thing that I think is better. If it's too formal, It's, you know, it's like a white carpet in a house. It looks great, but you can't live on it.
Yeah,
you know
and
what
you
I
don't
mean?
feel that comfortable
And that's
to
what I mean.
lounge
It's too
around on
formal.
it.
It's not a place to play, to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I've been coming to Chelsea for years. I think this is a great year. It's for inspiration, but it's also just to see stuff you would never, ever dream of doing at home. I mean, this garden we're on, it's about the wow factor as well, isn't it?
It is, and there is a little bit where you look at this and go, well, that looks great, but I'm not going to get that in my masonette. So there's a, but what I'm liking about it, and that's what I didn't actually understand, is around all of the massive displays, there's all of these little artisan shops, so you can get, if you like, a scaled-down version that will fit anyone.
Yeah, you can do even more shopping, John. Lovely to meet you. Have a great day.
All right, brilliant, John.
Cheers.
Away from the large show gardens, there are two smaller categories, artisan and space to grow. And because they're more like the size of most British back gardens, you can get some good ideas here. Nick Bailey has been out to prove that great things do come in small packages.
Visitors at Chelsea Flower Show are often drawn to the big, spectacular gardens on Main Avenue, but tucked away around the site are a series of smaller spaces with fantastic, translatable ideas that work brilliantly in smaller domestic gardens. This is one of the fantastic Space to Grow gardens designed by Paul Hervey Brooks. Now, it's quite a compact site. It's 10 metres by 6, so it's pretty close to the typical space that most of us are trying to garden in. And there's some great take-home ideas in here. For example, if you're designing in or gardening in a very small space, it can almost seem counterintuitive to add large elements like trees and like sculpture. But actually, by breaking up a small space in this way, it feels more dynamic and much, much larger. Now, if you've got a small garden, you really want to make the most of it in every way you possibly can, and some of that can come down to plant choice. And down behind here are some alpine strawberries. They look beautiful and they keep cropping all the way through the season, so maximum yield from a very small space. But another element that I really like in this garden are these log walls back here. And they work in lots of different ways. Of course, they've got the sculptural quality to start with, but also they provide screening. And the very best thing for me is that they provide hiding spaces for pollinators and insects over the winter. Gardening in a small space needn't limit your imagination. This garden is all about upcycled elements. So from this old digger bucket, which has become a pond, through to this watchtower, which is providing lighting in the garden. Particularly like over here, these teeth from old digger buckets. They almost look like little birdhouses. Now, there's a lot of elements going on in this space, but they're all pulled together by that rusty tone. And so the whole garden feels complete. And it's cranked up another notch by the planting in the garden, which picks up on those muted, rusted tones. So there's Carex buchanii just here, and Uncinia rubra. So those tones, along with the rusted steel elements, bring the garden beautifully together as a whole.
Mary Berry is one of Chelsea's biggest fans and is once again joining us all week on BBC One. And today she's been to meet a first-time floral exhibitor who's made her name creating high-end displays and arrangements for stars like the Beckhams.
Roseby has been creating wonderful arrangements like this since 1992. What an amazing name when you're in the rose business. This looks absolutely breathtaking, Roseby, and it's your very first occasion at Chelsea.
It's our first occasion in the Pavilion. We wanted to show people what we do, which is from farm to vase.
And you do this, and it's the smell that hits you.
I've really made a point of finding roses which have incredible scent. We've got Margaret Merrill over there, and then you've got Chandos Beauty, and then, of course, Mary Berry, who is the baby of the family.
She looks in pretty good condition, doesn't she?
She looks pretty damn good.
Not weathered.
Not remotely weathered.
Tell me, are all yours grown on the farm?
Yep, we pride ourselves as a company of growing just about everything that we put in our bouquets.
That's something to be very proud of.
Well, I think flowers are actually doing what food did about 20 years ago. People are now really taking an interest in where their flowers are coming from and how they're grown and the provenance attached to it.
You're quite right. We like to know where it comes from. And you've got all sorts of things in here that I wouldn't necessarily think of putting in a bouquet, like mint.
That's chocolate mint.
I can smell it from here.
Which is lovely. We think all these herbs really enhance the bouquets of roses.
From what I gather, you've had some incredible stylish clients.
One of them actually means a lot because it's now 20 years since we started our company, and it's 20 years since the Beckhams got married.
Oh, good
and
gracious.
they were our first client indirectly that we supplied all the roses to. They had a particularly velvety rose called Deep Secret, and it was lovely.
You look wonderful today, but I know you're a true gardener. Come on, show me your hands. That's what I like to see. No gloves, you just love what you do.
Well, we're back on Main Avenue, 7 show gardens down and just 4 stunning spaces to go.
And this part of the journey has a rather international flavour to it.
We're heading to the Emirates for the Dubai Majalis garden designed by Thomas Hoblin.
I've known I was doing this garden for over a year, so I've had a chance to really savour the whole design process. I've sourced all the plants myself. I've been all over the world finding out about this garden, and it's been an extremely emotional experience.
Back to rural England for the Warner's Distillery garden designed by Helen Elks-Smith.
This garden is based on the home of Warner's Distillery at Falls Farm in the beautiful rolling Northamptonshire countryside. This garden is all about family, friends, sitting, spending time outside. I have to say I do really love it.
Over to the industrial heartland for the Wedgwood garden designed by Chelsea legend Joe Thompson.
Every time I create a garden here, I really feel that I give a huge amount of myself. I think that's because I have an image in my mind, but also I have a feel, and it's very difficult to create that feel until you actually get on the show and start building and start planting.
And finally, a quick trip to the rainforests of South America, designed by Jonathan Snow.
I think the reason I'm so passionate about bringing a garden like this to Chelsea is that it's a great opportunity to show plants that we know quite well here in the UK growing in their natural environment.
And to finish off, the RHS Back to Nature garden, co-designed by Andre Davis, Adam White and the Duchess of Cambridge. And it's been getting rather a lot of attention.
During the build, Monty met with the Duchess to hear why she wanted to design a garden at Chelsea.
The Duchess has not only been involved at every stage of design, but also down here at the showground, helping put it together, getting her hands dirty. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to have a chat with her. We're at Chelsea. Is this as you thought it would be?
It's really exciting. I love the craftsmanship that's gone into it from the guys who worked in the garden. It's extraordinary.
I love the treehouse.
Seeing it on plan, you can't really relate it to the size of the trees and everything like that. But no, I'm really thrilled with it, and the guys have done an amazing job. I really feel that sort of nature, being interactive outdoors, has huge benefits on our physical and mental well-being, particularly for young kiddies. And I really hope that this woodland that we've created really inspires families and kids and communities in general to get outside, enjoy nature, enjoy the outdoors, and really spend quality time together.
Did you choose trees?
Yes, I went to the nursery in the winter, so nothing had its leaves. And this one, actually, I can remember seeing because it's so higgledy-piggledy.
It really is.
And we just loved the idea that some of the trees were as organic and as natural as possible and really had character. I think people nowadays miss out on just being outdoors. Everyone's glued to their phones or spending time inside, and I think particularly kids are missing out on a huge amount.
What's happening over there? That's half.
Yes,
half
come and
done.
have a look. Yeah. A lot of the bits I've been collecting with the kiddies, so old bricks. We've got a fire pit at home. One of the things we love doing is sort of cooking, making dens. I did that as a girl. It's a fun way for the kids to be experimental. There's no rules, is there? I get as much enthusiasm as building dens as my children do, trust me.
Do your children enjoy being outside?
Yes, they love it. Poor things are dragged out, rain or shine.
The planting isn't yet finished, but
No.
clearly you've got woodland, subtle planting.
Yeah.
What you're trying to achieve.
Well, a lot of the ideas and the inspirations of the things to put into the garden and the colour scheme actually came from childhood memories, really. And one of my strongest memories was walking through the bluebells with my grandmother, and it had such a lasting, I suppose, impact for me, and that's why we really wanted to keep the colour palette really simple and to give that sort of really powerful sort of blue impression that you get when you walk through Bluebell Woods.
We've still got a few days to go. I think it looks fantastic.
Thank you.
I think
You're
you should
very
be
kind.
really proud, and the
Thank
public
you.
will love it.
She really has got involved, hasn't she? And I saw her here on Saturday planting, getting stuck in. She's a keen gardener.
She's dropped by so many times. She's really taken it incredibly seriously, hasn't she?
It's fantastic. Well, of course, the garden isn't being judged by the RHS, but yesterday it had 3 very important guests giving their critical feedback.
Prince George, Princess Charlotte and young Prince Louis. In fact, all the family, including the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, spent quite a lot of time here playing in the garden.
What would you give out of 10, George? How many marks out of 10 would you give it? 10 being the highest.
20.
20 out of 10. Okay, that's pretty good.
20.
I think Mummy's done well.
How amazing is that?
Have you done here?
Yeah.
Whoa. Give me a push.
20 out of 10, there's a whole new scoring system here.
I know the RHS won't approve of that at all, but it was lovely. They just spent a lot of time in that. It's an immersive garden, and you could hear the giggles coming from there. In the middle of a Chelsea showground, finding that sort of family time together is beautiful.
I was watching them from out here, and the kids were just loving it. You could
Yeah.
hear them up and down the ladder into the tree house, on the swing rope, playing with around the campfire. They loved it.
Yeah, they had the place to themselves, didn't they?
So the Chelsea Flower Show 2019 is well and truly open. That's all we have time for this evening on BBC One.
Over on BBC Two, Monty and I will be digging a bit deeper into the designs and displays, and we'll see how the battle for best show garden is shaping up.
I'll be back on Wednesday here on BBC One.
But you can switch over to me right now on BBC Two. So, goodbye.
Goodbye.